Recognize him? Yeah, T.E. Lawrence. So Iraq and Jordan came to be because of him, sort of. But he made alliances with the Hashemite tribe, descendants of Muhammad from the Hijaz area of the Arabian Peninsula, and they were an important ally for World War I, for defeating the Ottoman Empire, and so they were promised a lot of things, including sovereignty. And so their Hashemites were made into kings in Iraq and Jordan is still the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. Iraq had a coup, and that monarchy is no longer there. But yeah, just to kind of connect it back to kind of a familiar topic, and each of these communities, these ethnicities or these cultural communities, they could probably be categorized either way, wanted sovereignty, they wanted recognition, and they wanted safety. And that's what the mandates were supposed to do, ideally, and that's why we have the current map of the Middle East that we do. It's roughly based on those mandates. Okay, so here is Iraq. This dark area is Kurdistan, and they're really enjoying an almost nation-state status now. There was a referendum last year where they were almost able to become their own state, but central government's not ready for that. And the presence of what most people are now calling Iraqi Kurdistan is really agitating Iran and Turkey, who don't want the Kurds in their states to seek independence and to take territory away from them and to create kind of a threat in their land. So there's Iraqi Kurdistan, and Kurds are generally Sunni Muslim, okay, and Iraq is both Sunni and Shia, but the Kurds there are Sunni, and there's been conflict between those groups, so that they're a minority in every state they're in, either culturally, religiously, or linguistically. They do not match up with the dominant paradigm in any of the countries where they live. They somehow have a major difference in no matter where you're talking about. Okay, so in Iraq, they're Sunni and they speak a Persian language and not Arabic. All right, and then now we have Iran, and they are also mostly Sunni in Iran. A few of them are Shia toward the south of their territory, like down here they're Shia. Iran is Shia or Shiite. It's the state religion. It's a very important part of the power structure there. So being Sunni is already kind of a rebellious identity. And there has been activism toward independence also in Iran that has been actively thwarted by the Iranian government with jailings and so forth. So that's the situation in Iran. And then here we have what people are now calling Rojava. Rojava is in the Kurdish language, and it refers to pockets on the Taurus Mountains. These areas here, here, and here. Kobani was in the news a lot because they were fighting ISIS there, the so-called Islamic State. And just like the newspaper article this gentleman shared with us, Kurds and their military prowess are making people stand up and notice them now because of their efficacy against the Islamic State. Suddenly they become very important in the world. But they have their own issues that they're dealing with and their own reasons for fighting. And it's not all about us or about Russia or about Turkey. They have their own, agenda and their own goals. So Rojava has become a place of refuge for a lot of ethnicities too, I should say. Like anyone who is escaping the Assad government, who feels persecuted, a whole range of people are going there because they feel like they can have any identity and feel accepted there. It's a very interesting kind of phenomenon. So you have multiple languages spoken there, and people it's very interesting how people can really manage all those linguistic differences. It's hard to imagine living in Columbus and Delaware, Ohio, where English is just such a common language. But this is the map of Syria, and you can see this is traditionally where Kurds have been in Syria, this kind of pie piece there and here. And so now these are Rojava, or people are calling them Rojava, but it's just where Kurds have lived. And of course, pockets of Kurds come down below the mountains, but this is where they've been concentrated, and now there's a pocket here as well. So right now the president of Iraqi Kurdistan, his name is Barzani, and Barzani, the family, actually occupies a lot of prominent positions in Iraqi Kurdistan, but they're Iranian culturally. And so this also creates some kind of irritation in Iran. And it's also interesting how, maybe because of cultural ties with Persian culture, you have this, it's less of a divide in terms of culture across that border, and you have families and tribes that have been crossing that border for much longer than it's existed. So there's probably a lot more similarity across that border in terms of Kurdistan and culture. And Barzani has really talked openly about wanting an independent Kurdish state and fulfilling that dream.
To what extent do they utilize the oil income in their Kurdish areas?
He asked to what extent they use the oil income, and I don't know to what extent that they use it, but I can say that has helped them be much more stable. They've stabilized their culture by instituting excellent universities and investing that money pretty wisely in terms of gathering their community together. And there's still a lot of divisions and conflicts between the different parties that are there. But I think the economic factor can't be ignored, that's helped them unify when a lot of times communities that are under threat are also economically suffering, and it's very hard for them to unify. There's a lot of infighting. But I think that economic basis has allowed them to overlook those differences because life is getting better. They feel more confident, more powerful with some, economic base there.
Are women being admitted to those universities? I know that a fifth
of the
fighting forces are women, so
yeah.
So there's more freedom for women in the Kurdish culture than in the Shia and Sunni cultures in that area?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So he's asking about freedom for women. There's a big difference, across all these borders we've been talking about for women. If we just shift gears for a minute to gender, Saudi Arabia is kind of an example that sometimes gets conflated with other Muslim majority Arab countries. In most Muslim majority countries, the women are going to university and schools and are incredibly powerful women and powerful people. Including in Saudi Arabia, but in Saudi Arabia they have these really strict gender segregation policies so that if you go to university there, you're like, where are the women? But they're on the other side of a curtain. Because there's an idea that to respect the culture there and the traditions, that you have to have this very strict interpretation of Islam and also of local traditions about keeping the genders apart. Which is a whole other lecture, but it's not really like that in most Muslim majority countries because people want their daughters to have an education. They want them to be able to have that security of being able to get a job if even if it's a very traditional woman and she's not looking to be the breadwinner in her household, having that as a backup in case something were to happen to the male family member is very, recognized as a very important thing, seen as desirable for mothers. There's a whole range of perspectives on women. So, yeah, absolutely, women are going to college in Kurdistan as they are in Turkey. I've been to Turkey regularly, and, God, I wish I could transport you there right now because when you talk to young women there, it's unbelievable. I mean, they're just like, yeah, I'm going to be a physicist. I mean, very common. I'm going to be a mathematician. Yeah, you know, and this is all just, you know, a part of their worldview and part of being a Muslim woman. And you hear it from secular. There are a lot of people in the Middle East too who might be Muslim, but they're secular, meaning that they don't necessarily put religion as the center in their lives, and they see it as something more like in Columbus, Ohio, where it seemed like it's more like an individual choice than like something everyone has to do. It's also like that, you know, for a lot of Muslims all over the world. So, so yeah, they absolutely are going to college in Iraqi Kurdistan, in university.